Good evening, and thank you for joining us. There is a lot of news to get to on this Monday night, but we're going to begin with rising tensions in Ukraine and the threat of a possible Russian invasion growing by the minute. Here in Washington, President Biden held a video call with European allies this afternoon to discuss a common response to Russia's continued military buildup around Ukraine's border. NATO announced that it was putting forces on standby and is reinforcing Eastern Europe with more ships and fighter jets, a move that Russia denounced. And the Biden administration is considering whether to send several thousand U.S. troops and equipment to reinforce NATO. Meanwhile, the State Department has ordered the families of American diplomats to leave the country, and they've advised that non-essential American embassy personnel and private U.S. citizens should do the same. Also tonight, Speaker Nancy Pelosi wants a White House briefing on the Ukraine-Russia situation for Congress. So we have two reports tonight from here in Washington and from inside Ukraine. CBS's Ed O'Keefe is going to start us off from the White House. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Nora. A major shift in the White House's approach to the Russian standoff with Ukraine is now underway. While the president met with European leaders today to discuss a diplomatic solution, plan for new military deployments suggests much of Europe is now preparing for the possibility of a new war.
I had a very good meeting, total unanimity with all the European leaders.
President Biden today consulted with European allies in the Situation Room, readying thousands of U.S. troops for a possible mission in the region.
It's very clear that the Russians have no intention right now of de-escalating.
The Pentagon placed 8,500 troops stationed in the U.S. on alert, ready to deploy to NATO's eastern flank within days if the situation deteriorates.
We are not deploying them now. We are not saying diplomacy is dead.
But the administration ordered U.S. embassy families out of Ukraine and warned Americans not to travel to Russia, as Vladimir Putin sent more troops into Belarus, a possible invasion point, and carried out military exercises in the Baltic Sea. After this weekend, is he more or less concerned about the possibility of a Russian invasion of Ukraine?
He said last week that military action by Russia could come at any time. That remains his point of view.
The U.S. is hoping its own show of force would deter Putin. Fighter jets could be sent to NATO countries as well as warships. The USS Truman arrived in the eastern Mediterranean today for long-scheduled exercises. But NATO is also bolstering defenses, with the Danish, French, and Dutch sending jets and troops. The president's threat of punishing sanctions if Putin invades
Russia will pay a heavy price.
Hasn't forced the Russian leader to pull back the nearly 130,000 troops on Ukraine's border. And with more of his forces going into Belarus, the administration has shifted tactics. What happened then in the last few days that prompted the Pentagon to present specific potential troop deployments to the president? Or put another way, why now?
I wouldn't say it's a response to an abrupt moment. It's a part of an ongoing contingency planning process and discussion.
Also tonight, the president was asked by a Fox News reporter whether rising inflation would be a liability in this year's elections. He gave this testy response as reporters walked out.
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
The administration likely to spend the next few days responding to all of that. Also tonight, the Department of Homeland Security is warning of a potential cyber attack against the U.S. if American and NATO forces respond to a Russian invasion of Ukraine. But U.S. officials say they see no sign of Moscow currently preparing any such attack. Nora?
All right, thanks, Ed O'Keefe at the White House.